Hey guys, and welcome to a showdown between two fearsome foes who know each other rather well. We have Sergeant Spaghetti leading the hordes of the Warriors of Chaos up against Grombrindle and his traditional Dwarven folk. Now this is going to be a battle of the clanmates here as the Sons of the Mountain do come head to head up against each other. So let's hop in here and have a look at the builds, and they are incredibly different builds from each other. You can see this Chaos build is absolutely huge, going all the way into the sunset, and they vastly outnumber the Dwarven enemy. Over on this left hand side we have some Marauder Horsemen for a little bit of backline harass, also good as well at picking apart Slayers, and they are going to be escorting a Chaos Sorcerer of Fire here, coming in with Flamestorm and Fireball. Fireball rather good at taking down stationary artillery pieces, and Flamestorm can do huge burst damage to the Dwarfs, who of course have a tightly packed formation and are rather slow to get out of its way. In the front line, we have an absolute bucket ton of Chaos Marauders with great weapons dotted all the way along. These guys are cheap, cheerful, and very happy to be here. Those mighty axes should cleave through the Dwarven armor rather easily, but blasting charges and just missiles in general will delete the Marauders very quickly. In the secondary battle line, we have a ton of Chaos Warriors with great weapons dotted all the way along, so pretty simple stuff. Basically, we're going to try and hammer down the Dwarves as much as possible and just swarm them with bucket tons of infantry. Leading this force is, of course, Prince Siegfried the Magnificent, looking as glorious as always as he slow motion charges into combat. He has Stand or Die, Heroic Blow, Slippery, as well as the Uruk armor, giving him that nice replenishment to his hit points, and all round, he's just a very sticky fellow indeed. Hidden deep in the trees, we do have one unit of Chosen with great weapons. I like the inclusion of these guys. They're elite. They're going to be able to carve through any unit in the entire Dwarf roster. But you got to be careful. They're very expensive and can be picked apart by range. So keep leaving them in the trees to the late game is a good play. We also have Chaos Warhounds dotted around the map, hidden amongst the tree line. So, for the force of the Dowie who are here to meet them in the front battle line, we have simple Dwarf Warriors, as well as some Longbeards, so rather cheap in the front line, and leading that front line is a basic Lord. I don't get to see this guy terribly often. Not terrible value for money if you're just trying to save a buck or two. He's coming in with Stand Your Ground, has 120 armor, will hold the line for a relatively decent amount of time. We also have Miners with Blasting Charges guarding each flank, but Blasting Charges can do huge damage to those Marauders with great weapons if they got the opportunity. We also have 2 units of Thunderers in the central pocket, and there's a huge range contingent to this build. So we have the 2 Thunderers, we also have 2 Bolt Throwers, which are deadly accurate artillery pieces, despite the fact they lack the punch of something like a cannon. But we have a Flame Cannon in the central pocket. Oh yes, you guys will probably be sick of it by now, as I cast a lot of Flame Cannon replays, but they're so badass. It's a really cool artillery piece, where it's heavily underrated. We also have the Ulfar Raiders in the back here, Regiment of Renowned Rangers, who come in with the Marked by Ulfar ability, and a couple of units of Slayers to help protect that back line. But the real reason we want to showcase this build here today is the SKOLDER Guard, Regiment of Renowned Iron Drakes who shoot steam from their guns. Amazing anti-infantry armor-piercing missiles. They do have a struggle with Arc of Fire, which can be a big problem. And now, one huge advantage by going mass infantry like this, like the Chaos have, units like Slayers are basically going to be useless here. Yes, they are unbreakable, so you can probably push them into the front line to hold back the enemy a little while longer and allow the enemy to wrap around them, and the flame cannons can then punish the enemy. But there's no large creatures for them to surround and dig into, which is a big loss straight out of the gate for the Dowie. Bolt Throwers equally don't have too many fantastic options, but they can do decent work to the Chaos Warriors, and they are pretty cheap. Flame Cannon is going to be raining in fiery balls of death right now, doing some good damage to the Chaos Warriors in the front line, and perhaps going to be able to break them with that burnt effect. But the Chaos Warriors are now the focus of attention, which is some good targeting all round, as Thunderers do start to unleash volleys upon the Chaos Forces, who are forced to come up over this hill and then charge for an open plain into the torrent of fire from the Dwarven folk. Now the SKOLDER Guard doing a little bit of friendly fire to their own Longbeards, but also doing some big burst damage on top of the Chaos Marauders there, who are wavering it before they even make it into the main fight. And the Chaos Marauder front line has been absolutely wrecked, but a huge Flamestorm comes down, doing massive damage to the Ulfar Raiders and doing a bit of damage to the Flame Cannon as well, before swooping back onto some Longbeards. However, the Flame Cannon's still firing strong for now, and the SKOLDER Guard going to be doing some lovely crossfire down onto the flanks of the Chaos Warriors. The Dwarf Lord going toe-to-toe with his Longbeards up against the Prince is actually doing some really lovely damage. That is also due to the Thunderers attempting to fire in and support where possible. In the back lines, looks like the Warhounds still being kept in deep reserve for now, maybe trying to lure the Dwarves into a full sense of security. Horsemen wrapping around the flanks at the moment, but it looks like the Chaos Marauders have been forced off along the main battle line, and now the SKOLDER Guard have turned to face 2 units here of Chaos Warriors with great weapons. That's some really good value. You can see they are repositioning here and getting ready to fire down the flank. It's going to be doing some big burst damage, and the basic Dwarf Lord, with the help of that Thunder Overwatch fire, has managed to force back Prince Siegfried, but the Chaos Warriors taking absolute huge shots right down the flank here. That is going to be doing some crazy damage. 40 or 52 kills already for the Skolder Guard. However, the sheer number of Dwarf Warriors is really starting to show here. Thunderers are getting shut down by the Chaos Warriors, as well as Dwarf Warriors on this left-hand flank being overwhelmed, despite the fact they are holding back 2 units, and the Flame Cannon is reaping the benefit. But the Warhounds do now pounce, shutting down all the artillery pieces. Bolt throwers are getting surrounded, Thunderers as well. It looks like the Ulfar Raiders as the Skolder Guard getting swarmed here. The Skolder Guard won't mind too much. They do come over rocking 125 armor, so should be relatively effective at dealing with Chaos Warhounds, who are now shutting down the Flame Cannon as more Warhounds just steam into the back line. This is a really key moment in the battle as another Flame Storm goes down, breaking off 2 units of Dwarf Warriors to see. Well, 1 Dwarf Warrior, 1 Longbeard, doing some lovely damage, but the Bolt Throwers are still going strong at the moment. This one is unharassed so far, but some of the Dwarf units have been pulled apart, desperately used to try to hunt down Siegfried. They're now isolated, surrounded by the rallying Chaos Marauders, who did come back into the fray, although it looks like the Ulfar Raiders are cobing over some axes, trying to support where possible. And the Dwarf Lord, given as good as he gets from Prince Siegfried here, doing a really fantastic show of these mighty heroes as Bolt Throwers and axes fly in around them. But the Dowie Lord does stand alone, and I don't know how long he will be able to stand, as Prince Siegfried, with all his buffs popped, has managed to force him off, it would seem. Skolder Guard continuing to get lovely arcing shots down the flank, which is the best way to use them. Chaos Warriors are starting to flee left, right and centre, but the Warhounds are back and ready to pounce. Going to try and shut down that Flame Cannon for good, but at this point it's used up almost all of its ammunition, and it's just wrecking face on the Chosen now. If it was allowed to use those last couple of volleys, perhaps the Chosen would be done for as Thunderers continue to rain in fire, but the Flame Cannon crew are at this point done for. Looks like some Slayers are starting to race over to try and finish them off, and the Skolder Guard were repositioning to fire in. Still about half ammunition on those guys, despite the fact they have 121 kills, which is very scary for sure. Chaos Warriors' great weapons getting overwhelmed at this point, and very wisely good play by the Chaos player here. Simply going to chase off the Dwarf Lord with the Chaos Sorcerer, but at the same time pull back Prince Siegfried, hide behind this hill, and juke those Bolt Thrower shots. Of course, he has regeneration. So longer he stays out of the fight, the healthier he is going to get. Balance power is slightly Chaos favoured, probably due to the fact they have destroyed the Dwarf Lord, but it looks like a lot of their ranged troops are still currently online, and a ton of Chaos Warriors are fleeing for the hills, but at the same time a lot more are coming back into the fray, and that's one of the problems the Dwarfs have in general, is they don't really have any good tools to chase and route in units. Chosen with great weapons are chewing their way through Longbeards, despite the fact Miners with Blaster Charge have rather heroically charged in to the rear of them, surrounding them, trying to help break them, and some Thunderous shots are going to be raining in as well. They are currently blocked partially by their own troops, and more Chaos Marauders are starting to flood in, trying to break this section as quickly as possible. Yet another Flamestorm has gone down. Looks like it was trying to finish off the Ulfar Raiders, has driven them away, but has then done some huge friendly fire, as well as a good fire, so doing some damage to Dwarf Warriors as well as Chaos Marauders, so a bit of a mixed bag at that time. Chaos Warhounds have been forced out once more, but they keep coming back, and they have managed to shatter one of the units of Bolt Throwers. Thunderers as well are going to be running for the hills. Skolder Guard desperately trying to rain fire in, but a ton of Chaos foot troops are now flooding into the back line, but some Longbeards rally to the cause, looking to plug the gap as a little while longer, make them hold. And the Skolder Guard can now freely fire in, doing some huge burst damage to this unit. But everywhere we look, Dwarfs are fleeing. Some Slayers managing to hold the left-hand side, but Thunderers being overwhelmed in the back lines. The Skolder Guard the only ranged tool left standing. More Slayers have managed to force off Chaos Warhounds, but the Chaos Sorcerer Lord has managed to pop in, and the Longbeards, despite their oaths of vengeance and steadfastness, do get beaten back here by the more elite units. Chosen were wavering though there, so were the Marauders. So these guys perhaps could have been forced off if they held them a little while longer, and the Slayers are going to be charging in just to try and do that, as the Skolder Guard turn around for one last volley, exploding Chaos Warriors and Marauders in gouts of steam and blood. But it looks like the Warriors of Chaos are going to be claiming victory here. The Dwarven folk have given up completely at this point, and with Prince Siegfried just chilling in the back, healing up, he's going to help the balance of power even more. Some of the Slayers do make a desperate last stand here up against the Chosen of Chaos. Not a bad way to go at all. The Dwarfs fought incredibly bravely here. We're going to get to see some pretty cool attack animations, and this game is so fantastic looking. I just wish you could zoom in a little bit more while actually playing it, but that's the bonus of these replays, right? Prince Siegfried, as well as the Flaming Steed, comes charging in to help finish off these Slayers. They do fall down to the last man. This poor Slayer getting clipped left and right before he does indeed die. But very well played to these two champs. Always good to have them both on the channel in an incredibly fun and awesome game. Now, before we go through the builds and points and whatnot, I hope you guys did enjoy. If you did, feel free to give the video a big old thumbs up. It really helps push it out to more people. And if you are new here or haven't subscribed before, feel free to subscribe. It is, of course, absolutely free, and it lets you know when my videos are out, and it helps, again, push out the channel even more. And if you want to see your own replays up on the channel, feel free to join my Discord. There's a link down below where you can submit replays, and you can support the channel over on Patreon or by becoming a YouTube member. Anyway, on to the builds. First and foremost, absolutely love both builds. A huge infantry core from the Warriors of Chaos is very fun and effective, although I must admit, this Grombrindle build is pretty insane. You're always going to win my heart when you come in with a flame cannon. 22,000 damage dealt, 2.6k damage value. Certainly paid for itself there and did some absolutely massive damage. If only it could fire those last couple of volleys into the bunched up Chosen, perhaps the left flank of the Dowry could have held firm and they could have driven them off once more. The absolute MVPs, though, coming in, the SKOLDER Guard, a unit which is rather rarely seen because it normally fares pretty poorly, mainly because of that Arc of Fire and the fact it's quite hard to protect, but a masterclass there from Grombrindle on how to protect them and get the value from them, firing down the flanks of units, which is hard to do, of course, because getting these guys into the right position can be pretty tough, but you can see when it works, it works. 2,800 damage value, 24,000 damage dealt, and 213 kills is very impressive. Bolt throws as well did a lot better than I expected them to do, getting some pretty decent damage. All of our raiders, unfortunately for them, got shut down by some very good flame storms from Sergeant Spaghetti. Thunderers as well managed to do okay, but unfortunately for the Dwarven force, these Slayers were basically useless in this type of build. Or not in this type of build, but against this type of opponent, they had no good targets really. Their only bonus was being unbreakable to hold the line a little while longer. And the Longbeards and Dwarf Warriors, of course, suffered against the weight of a sheer amount of great weapons here. Dwarf Lord performed relatively well, actually, managing to hold back Siegfried and allowing the Thunderers to focus him down. But he's a sticky combatant indeed, come back into the fray in the late game to lead the Warriors of Chaos to victory. Now, you may be wondering why would you bring Flamestorm up against Dwarfs? It's a magical vortex, and Dwarfs do have magic resistance, but it does so much damage, and it's really good against tightly packed forces. It actually works very well up against Dwarfs. It's a relatively quick cast, and can catch a lot of their units off guard. As we saw, the All-Far Raiders got dealt with rather effectively by it. Now, the Marauders were basically sacrificed to the almighty Dwarven gods here, just taking an absolute hammering on the way in, but that then allowed the Chaos Warriors to get in there and do some pretty decent work, with the help of the mighty Chosen. But you can see nothing on this build really got fantastic value. Even the Chosen only 900 damage value, still though nearly 10,000 or 9,200 damage dealt, but it was just very spread across the board. Huge damage, slowly dragging down the enemy before chasing off all those routing troops rather effectively, and good backline harass by the late Chaos Warhound Pounce. Hey guys, hope you enjoyed. Until next time, peace, and as always, stay awesome.